Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen of YouTube. As you can see, today I'm not at the studio, I'm at home again because I'm going to be doing a rather simple video. This is going to be the basics of how to use Reaper right from the very beginning. So if you've not used Reaper before, let's go ahead and say that you've used some kind of audio workstation before. I'm not going to try and really patronize you guys, but I'm going to try and show you where you would find everything in Reaper to get going, to get recording and get mixing. So without further ado, let's bring up Reaper. Oh, before we do, one thing that I highly recommend is get yourself an interface of some kind. I am using the Audient ID4. This is a fantastic little interface. They're not very expensive. This was just about £100 and has a very high quality microphone input. It's got a DI input for a guitar or a bass, which I'm going to show you as well. Speaker outputs, headphone outputs, nice big volume knob. And the sound quality is way better than you would get with something that's like inbuilt in your laptop, inbuilt in your computer. This is the kind of quality level that you will need in order to record something properly. Okay, so I'm going to plug that in because it's not currently plugged in. Get that ready and okay. That seems to have made the computer have a bit of a panic, but we're still going. Right, onward. So this, just minimize that. This is Reaper when you first open it up. So there's a lot to go at, but the very first thing that we need to do, let's go ahead and assume that if you've bought an interface or something, you've installed the drivers that came with it or came from the manufacturer's website, because Mac or PC, you need drivers which basically tell the computer, hey, this device is this, and I want it to work with these programs. Boom. So you get that installed, then you open Reaper, and the first thing is on the top right corner is all this stuff, which may seem a bit scary with this 44.1 kilohertz, 24-bit, yeah, that's a lot of stuff. Don't worry too much about that, just click it, and it'll bring you straight into Reaper's settings, straight to the audio device, because we need to tell the whole system what device we're using. So if we go into audio system, if you've got yourself an interface, the one you really want to use on a PC is ACO. The one you want to use on Mac is Core Audio. If you have to, in a pinch, you can use one of the others, but you will find that this has the best latency, the best processor usage. So ACO is the one we're going to pick. Then just below that is the ACO driver. You might have more than one installed. For me, I've used RME interfaces, Audient interfaces, so I've got more than one driver here. I have to pick the Audient USB audio one, which makes sense because it's an Audient interface. Now it's got enable inputs first to last, so that's fairly obvious. The first one on this is 1, last one is number 2, because it's only a 2-channel interface, but you can use an interface with 8 channels or 32 channels or 100 or more channels. This is just telling it what we're doing. So the last important part here is the request sample rate. And sample rate, let's keep this simple today. I've already done a talk on this before. You can find that on my YouTube channel. I'll put a card there. But to keep it simple for today, if you're going to be recording music for a CD, that would be 44,100. And if you're going to be recording solely for YouTube or for a film or a DVD, that would be best at 48,000. That's 48 kilohertz. Every good interface can do both of those. Sometimes you have to manually switch a switch on the interface, but more often than not, you can just request it here, hit OK, and that's done. So actually what I'm going to do here is I'm going to go ahead and change this to 48K. Just going to do a quick cut and make sure that all works. Okay, so the settings in the top right corner are done. One thing that I like to do at this point is just go to File and Project Settings and just tick the box that says Project Sample Rate, and then just tell it here as well, the same number that we picked in the settings for this file, because then when we open it again, it's going to tell Reaper, hey, this should be at this frequency. There's so much you can go at, so many settings in Reaper, so much you can change. For now, we're going to keep it simple. So let's start by adding a track. Now, in Pro Tools, Cubase, Logic, all the other main DAWs, when you add a track, you have to decide whether it's going to be an audio track, an instrument track, an aux track, something else, and whether it's going to be mono, stereo, whatever. I find that really annoying because it's quite limiting. What I can do in Reaper is in this big blank space on the left, I can just right click and go insert new track. Click. And that's it. It doesn't ask me anything about it. It just goes, okay, there's a track. And that's it. Nice and simple. Now, let's say that we already have a backing track. So in the big blank space over here, this is your timeline. This is where all your audio is going to appear. This is where, as you hit record or play, everything goes from left to right as you hit the spacebar. So if let's go to the insert menu at the top, insert media file, which is the first option. Now in my folder, let's just pick the theme tune, why not? And you can see that the theme tune's appeared there. And if I hit play, that's going to be very loud. So the first thing I'm going to do before I hit play is on the left. You can see where the track's got its name from that file now. And there's a volume knob. If I hover over that, it tells me how loud it's going to be. I'm going to turn it down and then hit play and you'll hear this. This is the point where I pick up the headphones, because if I did this over speakers, then that would cause a whole host of problems, because then we'd get feedback into this microphone. We don't want that. So just for today, I'm going to be working on headphones just so that we don't get some horrible noises. So I hit play, and which for me is the space bar, or there's also the play button down here. And then on the bar above that, if I click anywhere, that moves this marker, which is the playhead, so the music will start playing from there. So if I click so that that playhead is right at the beginning of the song, or if I move that to the end where the guitar solo is, just click on this top bar where the time is. And by default, Reaper goes back to that point every time, which is the way that I like it. I know that some people have it so that when they hit stop, that stops where they hit the stop button. I like it where it goes back so I can play the same thing over and over and over, because when you're recording music, I find that's usually what you want to do. Whether you want to do another take or whatever, I find that that's really quite useful. Now, let's go ahead and just quickly, no, let's not delete that track. Let's keep it for reference. So I'm just zooming in and out here. I'm using the mouse wheel so that I can kind of zoom out so I can see more, zooming in so I can see more detail. I really often do this when I'm mixing. I'll go right the way out so I can see the entire track, and then I can see roughly where I'm supposed to be, and then I can zoom in on all the detail. So I've double clicked in here for a new track because that's a nice shortcut in this blank space. I can just double click. Now let's say that I want to record a bass part, because I have my bass right here, and this is plugged into the interface, and it's plugged in on channel 2. So I have to think about this logically. So the first thing that I have to do is this new track that I've made. There's a little record button on this channel. I have to hit that so it's ready. So I play something. I don't hear anything because by default the input, which is here, is set to analog 1. So if I click the down button there, remember I said that there was no such thing as instrument tracks, audio tracks? The reason being is that here in this drop down menu you can pick whatever input you want. So you can pick a mono input, a stereo input for 2 channels at once, and you can also pick a MIDI input and just say, okay, this is a MIDI channel now. In my case, this is going to be a mono, analog 2, because channel 2 is where my bass is plugged in. And then if I hit something, you can see the levels go, but you can't hear anything. This is the next important point. where it says analog 2 there, just to the left of it is a little speaker icon and it says record monitoring off. I know that some people like to use the software that comes with their interface to do what's called direct monitoring. I'm not a fan. I hit this button once, it turns into a little speaker icon, and suddenly you can hear that, and I can hear that through the speakers. And that means that in the future, if I decide to use any effects like virtual amps or anything like that, then I'll hear all that through Reaper and I'll hear that through this method. If I click that another couple of times so it goes off, the noise goes off. Sometimes this is useful because this, if I hit record now, the big record button down here, it will record anything that comes through that channel. We won't hear it as it records. Sometimes that's quite a useful thing. Quite often if I'm doing a voiceover for something like this, I might not want to hear that as I'm mixing, but later I'm going to need it. So in this case we need it so we can hear the bass. Okay, so let's move the time over. Let's get rid of this channel and let's talk about this thing down here. Now, again, there's an analogy with Pro Tools. If I stick a load of channels up, let's just hide this mixer for a minute. So in Pro Tools, you get two windows. You get the edit window and the mix window. So I've just made a ton of channels here because this is what you'd see on a mix. Usually you would see, let's just name some of these. Bob, Dave, Steve, Darren, John, whatever. They've got track names, they're names. So the bass is coming in on the channel I've called Bob. And this is what we call the edit window. If I just hit the record button down here now, we'll come back to this in more detail in a minute, but you can see that there. If I just go to the edge of a track, I can make that bigger so we can see better what's on that track. So you can rearrange that so if you've got more tracks, you can see more, but if you want to see the detail, you can do that as well. So this being the edit window, this is what you see with a lot of guys who are doing a lot of audio editing, or they need to see where the track is. The other view would be called the mix view. So let's just undock the mixer, because this is how we see the mixer to begin with down here. So if you think about it, this is the mixer. So if we just forget what's behind for a minute, the edit window goes from top to bottom, and the mix window is exactly the same sound going left to right. So you can see Bob, Dave, Steve, Darren, John. Bob, Dave, Steve, Darren, John. That order is where they go. And these have got nice big faders on now, like you would on an analog desk. So you can drag these around. So as I hit play, the volume's going to go up and down. Okay, so that's great. And we can do that on several channels, and suddenly we're starting to pull a mix together. Now, there is more to this mix window that is hidden. The reason I've popped this out is that if I make this bigger by just dragging it larger, you can see that more appears, and this is the heart of what I call mixing, because these two sets of blocks here, which in Reaper can go as big as you want. You can have as much as you want there. These are what make an analog style mix. The top row here is what we call inserts, and the bottom row is what we call sends. Now, let's just go to the end of the mix window. Let's call this reverb. Fairly obvious. That's what we're going to use it for. Now, I happen to have Stephen Slate's Verb Suite Classics. You can use any VST plugin that you like with Reaper, as long as they match your whether they're for Mac or PC and all that kind of stuff. Now let's just leave that in its default settings. This isn't a reverb tutorial, but what I did is I clicked once in the inserts here, and then it came up with a list of all my effects, all the plugins. This is all the stuff that I've got. I have quite a lot of plugins actually, but hey, this is what I do. So I knew what I wanted. There's a filter here. I know it's called Verb Suite Classic, so I just started typing VERB, and that narrowed it down to everything with verb in the name. And I picked Verb Suite Classics, and that's gone there. Now that's not going to do anything if I hit play, because that's on its own channel called Reverb, which is great, but it's not doing anything. So what we have to do is we have to send some sound from our bass channel, also known as Bob, over to the reverb. Now there's a couple of ways to do that. You see this big thing where if I hover over it says track sends. If I click in there, it comes up with all the routing. Now what we're looking for here is sends. If I send, add new send, reverb, that comes up with a little slider here, and that's going to give us probably too much reverb. If I hit play, that's now being sent to that other channel which has Verb Suite on. And like I said, Reaper is really great like this, that it doesn't have to have aux tracks and audio tracks and folder tracks and group tracks and this track and that track. It works like an analog mixing desk where we've just sent audio from one channel to another channel, and that's it. And it just so happens that the other channel has a reverb on it. So what we've done is we've sent some of our bass sound to a reverb. That's how I think about it, and that's how Reaper works, and that's why I like it. Now I'll close that window down because, like I said before, you can do some really complicated stuff in Reaper, but you don't have to. So now we've done that, we've set that up, you can see here that it says reverb, and there's a little knob next to it, which is the volume. So I can tweak more reverb, less reverb. So let's make it less reverb. Also, just so you're aware, if you're wondering what Restream is, that's an extra plugin that I already put in. I cut the camera so that you guys can hear what I'm doing. That's something for another time. So the inserts on the bass, let's say we want a bass amp, because right now I'm recording this bass into a DI channel. Now if I click in the inserts, I have the thermionic amps from Kazrog. So let's just say thermionic amped bass. Oh, I can hear the noise on that now. Now if I hit play on this, it's quite gainy. But there we have it. That is an amp sound. Now I can put an EQ on top of that. So if I click below it, type the letters EQ. I've got quite a lot of EQs here, but Reaper's own EQ called Re-EQ is there. If I want more mids, less lows, I can now drag that around like I would any other EQ in any other program. Admittedly, this doesn't sound very nice, but it kind of proves the point. Now, one thing that I do in the studio is I have two screens so that I can get this mix window, put it on another screen, and I can see everything at once. It makes things much nicer for me. But if you don't have the space for that, you can right click on the mixer and click Dock Mixer in Docker, and that puts it down there. Now if I just drag that to make it a little bigger so that I can see a few effects, this is what you get on a 1080p screen. On a 4K screen you can see everything. So this is where people talk about if you use more screens you can be more efficient. The reason being that if you can see everything all at once, you're not having to keep flicking backwards and forwards. Now, let's just take record off there and unplug my bass. Goodbye bass. I also have a microphone plugged in over here. So let's say, let's just move over a bit and record on the DAW channel, and this is analog 1, so that's right. Let's plug the microphone in. Always make sure everything's plugged in and working long before you hit the monitoring buttons, because you don't want to be hearing that big poof noise that you get when you plug microphones in. So if I hit that, this will sound a little strange. It's going to sound probably kind of chorused or something, because I'm recording through here and on the clip-on mic. But let's say that I wanted to use a compressor on this live. So Reaper's got recomp. Let's just look in. This is Reaper's compressor. If you want to talk about compressors, that's another thing for another day. And let's just go with the presets, which are on the top bar. Every plugin that Reaper comes with has presets with it that are just on the top bar. You just click. Let's go with aggressive vocal. So that's now compressing, I guess. And let's just make that more aggressive. There we go. And because it's monitored, we can hear it. That's really annoying. There's a watch beeping. And there's a nice little shortcut as well if I want to send this to the reverb. You see these sends down here? If I just click in there and drag that over to the reverb, that is done. And suddenly it sounds like I'm in a huge cave. So I'll give that less reverb. Now let's say that I want to record to a set tempo, so to a set click. Now that would be over here. You see the time here, and then there's BPM with where it says 120. By default it's 120, which is a nice kind of happy medium. You can either click that and put a number in, let's say 90, and that'll change everything. Or where it says BPM, you hover over it, it says tap. So now on the mouse, I can, if I want to go on a certain tempo, I can literally tap the mouse and go 1, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. And that looked like it was settling at 102. So that will tell me what tempo is in my head, which is great. And then next to it where it says 4/4, if you're wanting to work in weird time signatures, you just type it in there and off you go. Now, there is a metronome button on this toolbar up here. It says metronome disabled. If we click it, that's metronome enabled. If we right click it, we get all the details. The only one that I usually bother with is primary beat volume, which basically means how loud the click's going to be. If I don't know if you're going to be able to hear this. Yeah, you will. You'll be able to hear it, I think. So if I hit record, there's a dip, 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 and 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. And a 1, and a 2, and a 3, and a 4, and a 1, and a 2, and a 3, and a 4. And then if I want, I can then turn the metronome off again, and 1, 2, 3. And a 1, and a 2, and a 3, and a 4, and a 1, and a 2, and a 3, and a 4. And that is how you record audio. Now, if you have a MIDI keyboard, then you can hit record on another channel, let's say Steve, and then choose an input MIDI. I actually don't have a MIDI keyboard with me right now, but if I hit virtual MIDI keyboard, here's something that's really interesting. If I'll just dive into the view menu, there is a virtual MIDI keyboard, which I can unclutter the screen, pull that out, and I can just tap on those buttons. And that will give me at least something to be able to tap notes in with. So let's go ahead and put a synth in there. Let's clear the filter. So what have I got? Let's use Sub Destroyer by Joey Sturgis. It's quite a nice, simple. Now again, if I hit notes, nothing's happening. The reason nothing's happening is I've not hit monitor on the channel, so I have to hit record monitoring if I want to hear things live. It's kind of a safeguard. It seems a little bit annoying at first, you have to get used to it, but oh, that's loud. Let's turn the volume down on that in the mixer. Okay, so this is the sub drop maker, but you can also, so if I hit record, let's turn the metronome on. 2, 3, 4. There we go. And if I hit stop, you can see those notes right there. And it's exactly the same for a drum program. It's exactly the same for any sort of virtual, piano, or if I have a MIDI keyboard and plug it in, I can choose the MIDI keyboard to be the input there, and then when I hit record, I'll be able to play properly, much like every other DAW, Logic, Pro Tools, whatever. The other option is if I left click somewhere, I can select a time selection. This is quite useful. So if I select a couple of bars, I can go to the insert menu, which is how you make new things, and go to new MIDI item, which is a quick way of making something that doesn't have anything in it. Now, why would you do that? The reason that I might do that, let's just get rid of this mic again. The reason that I might do that is if I double click that opens up the MIDI editor. Now, in the MIDI editor, I can start adding notes on the grid. And the grid works left to right with the time. So I've just added those there, and you see they're all red, and they've got these bars at the bottom. That's velocity, that's how loud they are. So I can make each one more loud, less loud. Really good when you're programming drums in, so you can make them not just deep. So between the MIDI there and the audio there, 1, 2. That's pretty much the entire audio world in a nutshell. And from there, you've got to get your audio in, which is kind of up to you. Then you've got to do little things like editing, which is where you grab the ends of the audio and just, take away the bad bits. There's also a snap button, which I must mention, which is on the toolbar. If I get hold of the snap button, I can then make this much more smooth, so we can remove bits right to the ends. So if there's a kind of a breath or a mistake or something, then you can just trim to there. The top of each bar, this is the same as Cubase, and this is how I found it. This is a fade in and fade out, so you can just grab the top bar and do a fade out on anything. And I think it even works for MIDI. So it actually fades out the volumes on the MIDI, which is something I've not seen in any other DAW. So there's so much to do. If you right click, you can drag boxes around things. If you left click, you can make time selections. Everything is at your fingertips. So I've showed you how to record, I've showed you effects, and I've showed you how to get going. Hopefully this is all that you need to know for now. If there's anything else that you'd like to see me talk about, then do let me know, because this is exactly the kind of thing where I'm planning on making a series on this, but I need to know what you guys need to know. So ask away on the questions in the comments section. Hope you found this useful. Thanks for watching. I'm Adam Steele for the Hot Pole Studio. Stay tuned for more gear reviews and tutorial videos, and we'll see you very soon.